This is Danny with QuadLugs, and we're going to install the 4-in-1 ESC and the flight controller. So all the ESCs are built in one unit. The wiring harness that comes with it is going to be connected here, and we'll do that in a few minutes. And this is going to be connected to the flight controller. We'll also do this in a few minutes. The first thing we're going to do is put a connector on, a battery connector. So to do that, we're going to cut the ends off, and you want to cut them close here so the wire's as long as it can be. And we're going to put our connector of choice. Yours may be different, but the one we're going to use on this one is the XT60. Let's get this done. Okay, we have the XT60 installed. Make sure the polarity on any of the battery plugs you put on, make sure they're correct. You know, this is plus, positive, goes to the red. The negative is the ground, and it goes to the black. And it'll always say on here somewhere the same. Okay? Just make sure your polarity is correct. And then when you go to plug in the battery, make sure also that the wires, the colors are lining up, just to make sure. Okay, we're ready to put this on. There's a couple places you can put the ESC. You can put it inside the box, or you can put it underneath the box. If you're going to install FPV, I would suggest go ahead and put, being that the box is so small, go ahead and install the ESC on the bottom. With the kit comes your nylon screws, and we have some spacers, and we have a few of them. We have like 4mm, 8mm, and 10mm long spacers. And the screws, I think they're like 32mm long. But we're going to install it just like this with the sticker facing up. So you want to have your screw. Let's go ahead and place all these in. And you'll want to not put too much pressure on any of the components. If you press too hard, or you get kind of rough with it, you can dislodge one of the components, and it won't work. So kind of hold it on the outside like this, on the edges, and keep away from messing with the components. So we have these screws in. We're going to put our 4mm, spacers. Now we're going to put 4 of the washers. So with the 4mm spacers, it's going to keep all the electronics off of the box, just to give it some room to breathe. And the washers are going to give some protection here onto the box. What you don't want is to have the washer go straight to the board. It'll short out. So you definitely want to have a spacer to eliminate any metal touching the board. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we're going to do it like this, so nothing falls off. We'll get all the screws started. And before you do this, you may want to put a screw through each hole just to make sure everything's fitting okay. Do a dry run just with the screws prior to doing this. It'll just make it a little bit easier. Just in case something's a little bit off, you can push it through and make it a little bit easier to go. Now if you look at it here from the side, you'll see that everything's clearing. Everything looks good. This is where your battery plug is going to go through. And you can put this in before you put this on, but it'll go in. And you just want to press it through. And there you go. Again, be careful with your wiring. If you get rough with it, you'll mess something up. So just be gentle with the wiring, as you should on all wiring. Okay? There you go. So let's pull this back a little bit. It'll make it a little bit easier to put in. Okay, we have these all in on this one. So let's go here and connect it to motor number 1. You may want to use a pair of needle nose. And make it a little bit easier to put it on. When you use the needle nose, you want to make sure you do not, mess up the insulating on here. So be careful with that. If you mess up the insulating, they can short out and you can have a problem with that. So that's what it's going to look like. Again, let's do this one. And again, it works a lot better to pull it out a little bit. Then once again, we'll hook this up to this motor. Doing one at a time is a lot less room for error. When we do the controller setup, we'll have an opportunity to check motor rotation and motor location. We'll always have a double check when we do that. But doing it now just save a lot of time. Now we have that one. If you notice, this one is going to this one. This one is going to this one. So it keeps everything in the proper location. We're going to do these two the same. We'll see in a little bit. Okay, we have them all completed. Now just remember, we may have to change rotation on one of the motors, and we'll know when we're doing the controller setup in LibrePilot. We're going to go through all that at that time. But just remember, if you do need to change rotation, any two of these wires, just unplug them, switch them, plug them back in, and the rotation will change. Super easy. Let's go ahead and push this back in now. One other thing we may want to do before we do that. So let's go ahead and plug this in. If you look at it, the pins are closer to this side, or one side or the other rather, and on the ESC it's the same. So on this ESC, the pins are closer that way. So we're going to want to do it like this. Don't force it in. Just double check it if it doesn't want to go in and make sure you have it the right way. If you do, it'll slide right in. Then make sure it's all the way in. Let's go ahead and push these through the controller. Let's go ahead and decase it. Some of these are coming cased and some of these are coming without the case. Either way, you do not want a case on. You want it to be bare board. But I normally save the case, and so that if you want to put it back in the case and use this for something else, the controller rather, for something else, you'll have it. So I normally save this stuff. Of course you don't have to, but I like to. Let's get this pulled apart. There we go. And there's your controller. So let me get this put back together. So we're going to hook up our controller to the ESC, the motor side of it. So on the controller, motor number 1 is going to blue. And also, if you look at your controller, you'll see here that the top pin is signal, middle pin is positive, bottom pin is negative or ground. And it shows it right here. So signal is going to be at the top. These are our signal wires. Motor number 1, and there's the motor numbers here. Blue is going to motor number 1. Motor number 2 is going to be green. Again, the signal is on top. Motor number 3 is yellow. Again, on top. Motor number 4. And let's straighten out these wires. Motor number 4 here is going to be hooked up to the white, the red, and the black. White is signal for motor number 4. Red is going to be the power. That's going to power your board up. And black is your ground. The white's going to go on top. So this is what it should look like. All signal wires on top, make sure they're pushed in. Blue number 1, green number 2, yellow's number 3, white is number 4. And again, it's on top. This is where we're going to plug in our wiring harness to the receiver. We're going to do that next when we go to install the receiver. For right now, we have our spacers on. Let's do this. We can hold the wire and kind of turn it, make it, I call this wire management. Make it look kind of nice. Be careful with the wiring. There. And we're going to install like this the controller. If you notice, there's an arrow which gives you the direction of flight. This is going to be direction of flight this way. But to make this a little bit easier to wire and to install, and for us to use our USB, this is where it's going to go here. We're going to plug this into the computer, and on LibrePilot we're going to set it up. So to make it easier to be able to plug it in, we're going to install it like this. When we do this, the arrow is going to be facing to the left 90 degrees. And we're going to compensate for that when we're setting up the controller on LibrePilot. That's coming later. So let's go ahead and get this installed. And what I normally do, make this a little bit neater, I'm going to run these wires underneath right here. There, now they're out of the way. And if you notice, this is pretty low. It's going to be really hard to connect the USB. So we're going to raise this up a little bit taller. So what I've done, I've taken off the 10 millimeter spacer and I put a 8 and a 4. And that raises it up a little bit higher so you can get a USB in here to connect. And that should be in your kit. So we'll take the nuts and put on. And once again, to keep from damaging any components, I would just hold your finger on the nut and tighten it from the bottom. And that's the easiest way to tighten them up and not damage any of the components. Tighten them up a little at a time to evenly pull it together. And once again, you want to get it tight enough, but not too tight. Here you can see if that moves. It moves a little bit. So let's tighten it up a little bit more. Once again, we'll check it. And that looks really, really good. Again, take your time with this. If you get in a hurry, you'll damage something. Just take your time. And it's installed. So we'll pull the battery connector out a little back where it belongs. And this is what it should look like. After we do the setup on the controller, and we'll do that in a couple of videos out yet, We'll check rotation at that time. Then we'll put wire ties and tidy all this up, make it look really nice. So far, ESC's installed, controller's installed. Next we're going to install the receiver, and we'll see you then.